That's right. What's going on, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo.
And I'm Stephen Rimbolo.
And you can catch our content anytime, all the time on jerseyfirst.org. You can check us out on Jersey First TV's YouTube channel. You can hit that notification bell, hit the subscribe button. You can check out all of your Jersey First content there, Bridging the Gap, Real Talk with Fernando, the Nader Narrative. You can also check us out on NJ.com on demand at any time. And, of course, check out jerseyfirst.org and sign up for our pledge, sign the newsletter. You know the deal. Steven, what's going on? How's your week been?
Dude, it's been a week. I gotta say, before I even talk about it, every week when we start off, I love our intro. I love Bruce Springsteen, as we all know. And it just pains me a little bit to remember that I think it was in like the 90s, they had done a poll and they were going to try and come up with like an anthem, like a state anthem for Jersey. And the only reason that Born to Run was stricken from that vote was because the people in charge of the legislature at the time deemed that it was like some sort of an expletive that he mentioned the word suicide in it. And I think that we were really robbed and we should maybe revisit that issue because that song just reminds me of home. And I think it really is the quintessential New Jersey song. And every time I hear it when we start, I'm like, what could have been, you know?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But no, this week has been it's been good. I was back home in Jersey this past weekend, which was very nice. I got to see my family, I got to see you, all my other friends. So it was definitely a recharge, a good boost that I needed, keep me motivated down here. And I'll tell you what, prior to this trip home, I would have been complaining about being in Florida. Not complaining, but it's not exactly where I want to be. However, today I woke up and it was 80 degrees outside, and I learned that it was like sweater weather, gross, rainy, and
It's
I was like, you
fall.
know what? Maybe this is a good place to be right now.
It's not gross and rainy where I'm at, but like it's cold. It's fall. I can tell you that.
I tell you what, I walked out this morning and I said, I got to go to school. I want to go to the beach. That's what it felt like.
Fair.
But that's the
I love
danger
the fall
of
though.
school in the South.
Yeah, you got that
So
summer on the brain.
all the time, it never leaves.
No,
But
that's fair. See,
school's
I
good.
love the fall. So this like type of weather, this gets me going. Like I'm in my zone right now. I want to be outside all the time cuz like I could be outside and not sweat, but I also can be outside and not be shivering cold, you know? I just throw a sweatshirt on and I could be outside all day.
See, that's one thing I do miss. I love when there's a bit of a chill in the air, something that you walk out and it kind of like, ooh, not quite warm, not quite cold. But my understanding is once, I guess, after November, that's kind of how it is down here. But I'll report back. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let us know. Keep us in the loop.
It definitely
But
will.
yeah, no, I really quick. I just think we would be remiss to not mention it. If you look down on our names, it is the pink coloring because October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I think it's important to just make sure you're out there and you get checked. You check yourself. And I do say this every year around October because, as you know, Stephen, my uncle actually was diagnosed with breast cancer, and he wound up it metastasized, and he wound up passing away once it reach his brain. But I say that as a warning in his honor and in his memory that men can also get breast cancer. So men as well as women should be checking to make sure that there's nothing abnormal that they feel or see on their chest because it affects both genders, and I feel like most people don't realize that it affects both sexes the way that it does.
That's entirely true. And I honestly, I couldn't imagine a better way to, honor somebody's legacy than working on that advocacy. So it's always admirable when you do it and echo the same sentiment. Just make sure that you're taking care of yourself, getting those procedures done, checked out, and any survivors, congratulations. People fighting the good fight. We support, and better days are on the horizon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But look, Steve, we got a bunch of stories and we got a lot of stories, not a lot of time. So let's
And
start. Steve, where do you want to start? I'll let you bring us in whatever direction you want.
I think that a great place to start would maybe be talking about what's going on in New Jersey schools, as we
Sure.
love to do on this show. So there's a lawsuit. This broke on NJ.com today. Uh, Interesting, definitely a contentious topic. So I'm sure, as we always do, Age and I'll, do our best to be good advocates of the truth and present the facts and then opinions afterwards. So this suit filed actually a week ago now, October 12th. It's filed in U.S. District Court, and it was filed by the father of three Cherry Hill High School students. And he's suing the new school district, Cherry Hill School District, and the New Jersey Department of Education over this guidance memo that it had posted that this school then went ahead and adopted some policies from that deal with policies regarding transgender students. So this suit takes issue primarily with the Department of Education's guidance, which doesn't require schools to notify parents if their child, while they're in school, indicates to a teacher, a counselor, some school official that they are changing their gender identity, whether it be their name, how they want to be referred to, whatever it might be. This guidance, and it's important to me that I call it what it is. It's guidance. It's not an official DOE policy. Um, Cherry Hill went ahead and adopted, and this father takes issue with that, and he alleges that it's a violation of his 14th Amendment rights, which deal with, you know, parental control over their children, the ability to parent. And he alleges in the lawsuit, quote, it provides for secrecy and the facilitation of double lives that are psychologically unhealthy for the youth. So some of the things that this guidance does that are material to the actual suit, it deals with keeping of separate files. So once a student notifies somebody in the school of their intention or desire to change their gender identity, the school has to keep a file, with everything relating to that individual's birth name, the name they were assigned at birth, and then a separate file for their new identified name. There's policies that regard, making sure that there is I'm going to call it a comprehensive, um, almost implementation throughout the entire school to make sure that teachers, administrators, even substitute teachers, visiting speakers, all those things are aware, once an individual has indicated that they want to change their gender identity, they make all these other school officials aware on how to properly address them, make sure that there's no issues there, um, which could raise some questions about, compliance. And I think this is ultimately similar to the situation that launched Jordan Peterson into popular culture, a couple years ago out of a Canadian university where he refused to refer to students, transgender students, by their chosen names. There's also issues regarding the usage of facilities in this memo, which I think is pretty interesting. It says that at least I'd imagine at the middle school and high school level where you're dealing with children who, have to change for gym and stuff, it says that students should be allowed or, under this guidance are permitted to use the facilities that align with their gender identity. And that if it makes other students uncomfortable, those other students should have access to unisex changing rooms, or the guidance suggests that they could use the nurse's changing room. So a lot of things to discuss about this guidance that the Department of Education put out, and more so about this lawsuit, because what it's doing is it's seeking to end the notification policies that Cherry Hill has adopted as a result of this guidance. And it's going to require, it wants to require that, if a child indicates this change to a school official, that the parents are made aware of this. The state's reasoning for this guidance is that, we don't want to out students to their parents, whether it may be because they're afraid of their parents' reaction, it's a, volatile situation at home, whatever it may be. The gentleman in the suit alleges that it's not the school's job to decide whether he is fit or unfit to handle the decisions that his child makes, and he should be made aware. So I think this is a good place to open it up, get some thoughts, and see how you're feeling about it, AJ.
Yeah, no, I think basically what it comes down to is that this parent has the constitutional interpretation of the 14th Amendment on his side. You have the right to raise your children how you see fit. Now, look, I'll say this: if the school's concern, right, if that's what it is that these kids might go home and there might be some sort of abuse going on after this happens, guess what? Then they have the mandatory responsibility to report abuse if they think that is going on. But It is not on the school to make a determination on what the parents should and should not know about their own children. So if a child is coming to the school and saying something like this, like they want to be referred to by a different gender or a different name or whatever the case may be, the parents have every right constitutionally under the 14th Amendment to have that information. Parents have rights over their children, and they have the right to raise their children how they see fit. Whether you or I or anybody else likes it, that's the truth of the matter. If they're not abusing their children, they can pretty much do whatever they want with their children. And so, and I'll say this, I think that that's correct. I think that that's right. I think that that is the just disposition. You are a parent and you should have the right to parent your children the way that you see fit. And you do under the 14th Amendment and in the United States. And I think that this is the state stepping in and saying, we have more rights over your children than you do. And I also I think that it's kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth on this issue. When the school says something along the lines of, look, these are children, they can't consent to certain things, they don't have the ability to make certain decisions about things. Like, let's think about what the school says you can and can't do. When I was a senior in high school, when I was 18 years old, I wasn't allowed to drive off of campus to get myself a lunch and then drive back during my lunch period. Wasn't allowed to do that, right? Because why? Because the school has the responsibility over the children at that time, and I can't make that decision responsibly, apparently, as an 18-year-old who's been driving for over a year and who's been in school for 12, right? I can't, they didn't trust me with that responsibility. But at the same time, they're saying you can completely change your gender and your name and your identity and everything, and we won't even tell your parents about that. You would tell my parents if you caught me leaving campus and going to get a bagel for lunch, right? But you wouldn't tell my parents if I completely changed my identity? That seems a bit ridiculous.
I will double down on that and emphasize not a bit ridiculous. It is wholly ridiculous. So, on premise, I agree with you. I do believe, like you said, the constitutional affirmation that parents have the right to be involved in how they raise their child. And what this suit alleges also, and I think is a really interesting fact, they cite in their response that there's been a lot of discussion between mental health experts that say informing a parent about your child's decision to transition, right, if you're the school, is it might actually be the best thing to do because maybe the parent, instead of having an outburst or turning around and abusing their kid, might want to understand. And the school is in a great position to facilitate, some resources that might make that decision easier and more accepting on behalf of the parent. And you can work with the parents then to implement the proper lifestyle changes, if it's ultimately what's going to happen, that are going to be beneficial for that student, their involvement in the school, how it changes all the paperwork, all those other things. You're talking about ultimately, at the end of the day, like you said, a child, unless you're the age of 18, which isn't going to happen until you're about to exit, the elementary school system or whatever we're going to call it,
K through
making a
12.
decision about their yeah, making a decision about their identity. Parents need to know. Parents absolutely need to know. And he stressed that. And I think this notion of a double life is a really brilliant thing that he brings about because now imagine the stress that this child faces where, maybe they're in school and, they said, hey, I used to be Jack. Now I'm Jessica. And everybody at school knows them as Jessica. All the teachers have to report to them as Jessica. When they step out of the house to go to school, to get on the bus, to get in the car to go there, they have to be Jessica. But when they come home, they're Jack. That's a very stressful life to live at the age of 17, at the age of 18, at the age of 30. It's too involved and it's going to add layers to somebody who is, already having some sort of mental quarrel and in a position in life where things are not easy to begin with. Everybody remembers what it's like to be 17, 18, that, the world is getting so much bigger around you and you have so many more responsibilities and you want to add on top of that a double life. I don't think it's productive. I think it adversely affects the child. And as much as the state might think that it helps, I agree with you. I think it's the state stepping in, saying to a parent, we know how to take care of your child better than you do. You sit down, we'll let you know when it's important to you. If I was a parent and I found out that the district that my child was in took these guidelines from the DOE, I would have a big problem with that, 100%.
Right, and I think it's important to remember, like, this is not, John Doe going by Johnny Doe or JD now. Like, this is much bigger than just, a different name or a nickname, right? This is like you said, this is leading to living a double life, and that's not fair for the child or for the parents or for the school or anybody involved. It's not, because it's not healthy and it's not good
No.
to
And
be forced to do that.
I'll take a practical view on this as well. And it's not to, disparage any of these, individuals who identify differently than their, assigned gender at birth and all this, that, or whatever. But I also, as a father, if I was a father in this situation, as a taxpayer, I don't know that I want the school to really be concerned with having to maintain two different files for the same student and talking to all these teachers. And you're ultimately going to detract from the purpose of school which is to give these children an education, give them opportunities to flourish and grow and develop. And you can argue that, affirming somebody's gender identity might be a part of that. And I would say that is not the job of a public school whatsoever. If they want to help, if they want to assist, if they want to provide a guidance counselor, come in, talk about it, cool, that's fine. But I think it should end there. I think when you're requiring, the use of these resources, you're talking about, designating certain, unisex bathrooms. If the school doesn't have one, they got to make one. There has to be accommodations for, students who want to go and change in the nurse's room, and you have to have two files, and you have to talk to all the professors and all the teachers and all the administrators. And if a new substitute comes in and they're going to that classroom, you got to let them know. Like it adds so many more, paths that you got to cross to get through to get through a day in school. And it's just not a good use of resources. And I think it really detracts from, what those kids are there to experience.
Yeah, I think that one thing to note briefly, and then we should probably move on, is that this idea that you're making other students, because maybe it's, the girls in the girls changing room, and there's a transgender student that wants that, it was born a male and is transitioning into a female, right? Like, say that's going on, and you're making all of these girls who are changing in the girls' changing room have to leave because they feel uncomfortable. That seems a bit counterintuitive. Like, if girls feel uncomfortable, then the person transitioning should have to be the person that goes to the single use, single unisex bathroom, instead of making the number of girls have to do that. Like, that just
I would
doesn't seem productive in any way.
I would agree with you. And I want to point, listeners, viewers' attention. If you want to go ahead and you want to read this document, it is quite short. It's 7 pages, but it's really easy to get through. Department of Education has it on their website. It's called Transgender Student Guidance for School Districts. And just important to note, Cherry Hill is not the first and only one in the state that has adopted some of these guidelines. So if you're a parent, if you're a taxpayer, if you're a concerned citizen, check, see what your school district is up to, reference this document, read it for yourself, find out what these policies are. And my solution now, whenever we talk about these kind of issues, is I think we should make it an effort to provide the proper channels to make sure that people are our job, make you aware of what's happening, make you aware of what's going on, and B, let you know where you can go ahead, educate yourself, and affect the change that you want to make. So this information is really easily accessible. And if this is an issue that you're passionate about, I would encourage you to go read, inform yourself. It takes 15, 20 minutes to get a good baseline knowledge, form a really well formed opinion, and start making the proper phone calls or emails that you need to send.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. And unfortunately, we have like 10 minutes left, and we have a big topic that we do want to at least address.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it goes um it would be wrong of us not to address continue to address, I should say, what's going on over in between the war between Israel and Palestine. But then on top of that, like, all of the layers that are going on in the United States to add to that conflict here. It's a
Mhm.
war over there, but the conflict that war is bringing here within our halls of government, I think that This is a really large topic, but and we're not going to give it the time that it deserves, but we can continue to address it as it develops throughout the weeks. Um, I think the first place to start is that you're going to see a lot of things on the internet, on social media, that is declaring a complete and utter um, moral. I won't even say moral equivalency, moral supremacy of one side over the other. I'm sure everybody has seen the devastating pictures from the bomb that went off and hit a hospital in the Gaza Strip, and it caused just horrific damage to human beings as well as the building. But I mean, who cares about the building at that point? It's like the damage that was done to the people that were in said hospital, the women, children, sick people, elderly, you know, men that were in the hospital. And but what you see is that one side is saying that it was from an Israeli air air attack, and the other side was saying that it was from a Hamas misfired rocket, right? The fact of the matter is, we don't know who's right. And if anybody is sitting there definitively telling you that one side did it 100% and we know that, they're lying to you. So don't pretend like we know what's going on. And that's the tricky thing about reporting on war. And I think something that we should address here when you're seeing reports that are going on in an ongoing conflict is that there's a lot of mis and disinformation out there because things happen so quickly and move so fast that it's nearly impossible to get the right story. And everybody's saying something different because everybody has their own agenda that they want to push on both sides of this issue, right? So anybody that tells you they know exactly what's going on and Palestine is the Palestinians are 100% correct or the Israelis are 100% correct in what they're doing are lying to you and they're just pushing an agenda upon you to decide. I think what's important to note is that nobody wants to see innocent people die. First of all, critiques of Hamas and the Israeli government are not critiques of the Palestinian and Israeli people. They're critiques of the governments in charge. And if we can all just try to remember that there are innocent people, both Israelis and Palestinians, that are losing their lives in this war, then we can all at least agree that that's not what we want to see happen. We don't want to see soldiers lose their lives either. I think we should make that clear. Like nobody, we don't want to see anybody lose their life. But soldiers losing their life in war is an unfortunate consequence. Innocent people should not have to feel the consequences of governments acting in the way that they do. But unfortunately do. So we should keep those people in our thoughts and prayers, and we should try to not just immediately pick, you know, these sides as if we know exactly what's going on and one moral better than the other. Um, and that's just what I have to say about that. I'll let Stephen go.
So, echoing the same sentiment, I would agree with you. This first most important thing is we're not there, so we have no way to know what is true and what is false. And we even learned, with respect to our own government, Joe Biden said that he saw pictures of, you know, very graphic things that Hamas had done to babies. And then the next day, somebody from his press team was like, well, no, he actually didn't see the pictures. And it was just kind of a word of mouth from a, Israeli ambassador. And we're playing telephone. And you have to understand that the message that we are going to get, we are the last people to receive the message, and it is never going to be correct, direct from the source. Take that for what it's worth. I think the most important thing that Americans need to worry about right now, and then once I finish with this, I want to bring it back home to New Jersey as well, is that we are, and I don't mean to sound alarmist, sitting at a very, very pivotal moment in world history, in the context of all things happening, modern conflict, you know, sort of a new spark to reignite, make hot a Cold War that has been cold for the better part of a century at this point now. We have Joe Biden, who tonight, so we're recording this on Thursday, October 19th, Joe Biden tonight at 8 o'clock is going to, do his, I believe is his first Oval Office address as president. And it's hypothesized that he's going to ask for a large amount of money from Congress to help support the Israeli initiative in Gaza, as well as request more funding for Ukraine. And he's also going to request more funding for Taiwan. That to me signals that the President of the United States feels that we need to bolster our presence in three international conflicts that are functional proxy wars with three different adversaries of the United States: Iran in the Israeli conflict, Russia in Ukraine, and China in Taiwan. All of that, while we also have an ongoing issue at the border where record numbers of undocumented immigrants who are coming from all over the world through the southern border have been pouring in. And Joe Biden found it appropriate to almost laugh it all off in an interview that he conducted recently. I believe it was on 60 Minutes, where he said, "We're the United States. We're the greatest and strongest country ever. Of course, we can fight these wars away and protect our border at home." Nothing in Joe Biden's administration has led me to believe those words to be true. And as an American, that concerns me. Add on top of that the fact that the House of Representatives, one half of the governing body of Congress that needs to approve any military or financial decisions, does not have a Speaker of the House. And the president is about to ask for money to go and support three international conflicts. That's a problem. And to bring it home to New Jersey, just this past week, Senator Bob Menendez had another charge added to his federal indictments that accuses him of being a foreign agent of Egypt, a country that directly borders Gaza, a country that is quite literally one of the singular pathways for humanitarian aid, American assistance, and American support into the region. He was not allowed to attend the all senators briefing on the Israeli Gaza conflict that happened today because of these allegations. So, regardless of how I feel as a New Jerseyan, I want to extend the call to Americans who have a vested interest in making sure that our country does not get embroiled in another endless war with poorly and not clearly defined objectives or initiatives, and say that we need to have better representation. Senator Menendez should not at all be serving or holding public office, A, because of his history, B, because of the new charges, and C, because of the fact that he is the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Intelligence Committee, and we are about to fund three proxy wars. And the government is alleging, the state is alleging that he is a foreign agent of a country that borders directly where one of these conflicts is going to be. So there are so many competing interests, and we are at a really, really precarious position in modern history. And my parting words would just be: I hope that anybody who is listening to this, anybody who's paying attention, be aware and conscientious of the media that you consume, and make sure that your interests and what you advocate for are placed in the right places. If you are, taking this as an opportunity to go and get likes, go and get clicks, not to be frank about it, but what a waste of your voice and your ability to speak truthfully, because we are dealing with innocent lives. We are dealing with the American, stability. We are dealing with stability in the Middle East. We are dealing with competing foreign interests. Like this is not something that could be boiled down into a 20-minute conversation. And I'm just grateful that AJ, you and I both have not only the experience to talk about these things, but the platform to share our thoughts and hopefully educate people and have them understand that the situation isn't boilerplate. It's not one side versus the other. There are a lot of things that need to be considered, and ultimately, as a country right now, I think we need to do some soul searching, and we need to come together, and we need to have a unified position as the United States of America on what we want to do. Because unlike Joe Biden, I do not believe that we can fund a proxy war in Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel, and also defend our southern border. Those four things cannot be done. And on top of that, the crises that we have domestically with inflation and all those things, I think that we're in a really dangerous position. And we need to figure out what Americans need.
Yeah, Steve, look, I couldn't have said it any better myself, and I'm not gonna do any injustice by trying to add or subtract, because I think that everything you said is exactly spot on and beautifully said and perfectly said, quite frankly. So look, we will be back next week. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. Um, but thank you for listening. I hope that you heard Steven's message. I hope that you heard the message that I had started the show off. So, like, I mean, that's very individual what I was saying, but just make sure it's not individual actually, because it affects everybody around you and all of the people you care about. Make sure you check yourself and make sure you tell your loved ones to check themselves. And then also make sure that you remember what you are reading and who and the agendas of the people that are trying to that are putting out what you're reading, I should say. So with that, I got nothing else to say. I'm AJ Malillo,
I'm Steven Rambola.
and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.